Welcome to Legacy Capsule, where we delve into the captivating narratives that have shaped American history. On June 25th, 1876, the Battle of the Little Bighorn resulted in the complete destruction of 5 companies from the U.S. 7th Cavalry, commanded by George Armstrong Custer. Among those present was White Wolf, who later recounted how young men scavenged the bodies of deceased soldiers, discovering square green paper currency in their pockets. This unfamiliar money was subsequently repurposed by children as saddle blankets for their toy mud horses. Additionally, silver coins were found, which the Cheyenne utilized to create silver buckles. Other warriors present, including Wooden Leg, Little Hawk, and Bobtail Horse, reported finding bottles of whiskey among the fallen troopers. 2 days following the battle, on June 27th, cavalry troops arrived to witness the grim aftermath of the conflict. Lieutenant Edward S. Godfrey vividly described the haunting sight of marble white soldiers' bodies alongside the brown remains of horses and ponies scattered across the battlefield, particularly near Custer Hill. The dry reddish-brown grass contrasted sharply with the pale earth, creating a chilling image of death and desolation that left a profound impact on him. He noted that the scene was one he would carry with him forever. Captain Tom Custer was discovered near the summit of the hill, just north of the general, lying face down. His features were so distorted that he was unrecognizable. His body was marked by numerous arrow wounds, including injuries to his back and head, where an arrowhead was bent and deeply embedded. His skull had been fractured, and nearly all of his hair had been scalped, leaving only a small patch at the nape of his neck. In stark contrast, General Custer's body remained unscathed. He was discovered lying on his back with his hands resting on his abdomen, a posture familiar to those who had marched alongside him, as they had frequently observed him napping in this way. He had sustained 2 fatal injuries, one to the front of his left temple and another near his heart. Boston Custer, the youngest of the Custer brothers, was located approximately 200 yards from Custer Hill. His body was completely stripped, except for his white cotton socks, which had their labels removed. Numerous bodies scattered across the battlefield bore remnants of bloody undershirts, trousers, or socks. Yet in each instance, their names had been excised. The horrifying sight of the naked, mutilated corpses, marked by lethal wounds, created a scene of profound distress. Among the limited tools available were half a dozen spades and shovels, a few axes, and a couple of picks. The soldiers endeavored to bury their fallen comrades as best as they could. Using knives and tin cups, they quickly covered the bodies with a thin layer of soil, leaving them in the expansive wilderness, hundreds of miles from civilization and far from the comforting presence of their families. Trumpeter Giuseppe Martini recalled witnessing a pile of deceased soldiers in a deep ravine situated between Custer's position and the river. Among them was a first sergeant whose body was adorned with torn fragments of approximately $500 in paper currency, which had been entrusted to him for safekeeping by the men he commanded. Martini also noted that part of Adjutant Cook's sideburns had been scalped, with the skin still attached. 7th Cavalry Scout George Harrington reported that 4 soldiers' heads were discovered in the Sioux camp, severed from their bodies, which could not be found on the battlefield or within the village. Lieutenant Charles Rowe of the 2nd Cavalry noted that a white man's head was located in the Indian village, bound to a lariat, having been dragged through the area until it detached from the body. Survivor Jacob Adams recounted that soldiers were lassoed from their horses and pulled into the center of the village, where they were bound to trees and burned alive. These gruesome events were observed by their fellow soldiers from Benteen's division, who were powerless to intervene. John Ryan later remarked that bones and fragments of blue uniforms were discovered at the locations where men had been tied to trees and stakes. Of the 5 guidons carried by Custer's troops during their final stand, only one was retrieved shortly after the battle. It had been concealed beneath the body of a fallen soldier, Corporal John Foley, who had attempted to flee on horseback. As he was pursued by warriors, Foley took his own life before being captured. This recovered flag later became known as the Culbertson Guden, named in honor of Sergeant Ferdinand Culbertson, a member of the burial party that found it. Thank you for joining us on Legacy Capsule. Please subscribe and accompany us on this exploration of the past. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode.